Ada for kidnapping my baby, causing my husband to have a panic attack. I-29F recently started working again after having my daughter. 4M. Daycare is too expensive, so my husband 35M reluctantly agreed to stay home. It's important to know that he's been unemployed since 2021. He receives benefits. It's also important to know that he's extremely lazy. He doesn't cook, clean, or help out in any way. I was nervous about leaving her home with her father, but I had no choice. When I came back from work, she was clean and sleeping. The next few times I came home, he was either playing with her, feeding her, or out for a walk with her. I was happy. A few days ago, my neighbor told me that as soon as I leave, the baby cries, and she cries for hours. My neighbor said that she knocked on our door and he finally answered it. He was sleeping. I concluded that he sleeps all day and right. Before I come home, he pretends to care for her. I decided to take the day off of work. I left home at my regular time, waited 30 minutes, and then went home. Sure enough, he was knocked out asleep with his stupid noise-canceling headphones on. I went to my daughter's room, scooped her up, and took her to my friend's house. I waited about 2 hours, and I finally called him to tell him that I was coming home early. He called me back saying that he can't find the baby. He told me that he was going to call the police, but before he did, I told him what I did. He called me an asshole and a lot of other words too. When I got home, his mother was there, calming his nerves because he has a panic attack. She also called me an asshole. My husband decided to sleep at her house. Family members are telling me that I'm a terrible person. I know that it was extreme, but I don't know if I would consider myself to be an asshole. Quick update. Sorry I created this account just to post my story. I'm not a big Reddit user. I miss so many wonderful messages from people. The last few days have been crazy. Once I finally told everyone what happened, many took my side. My ex-husband and mother-in-law still think I'm a jerk. My friend allowed my daughter and I to move in with her, which is nice. We were living in a bad area before, so this can be a fresh start. My ex-husband has not asked to see my daughter for the past week. Online, he's saying how I ruined his youth by trapping him with a baby. IDC anymore. I'm in a nice routine with my daughter. I took her to the hospital, and they found signs of neglect. I explained the situation. The doctor advised me to press charges against my ex-husband. I think I will, but I'm safe. My daughter is safe. We'll give our opinion in the next story update. My 30th ex-husband, 36M, wants me to be a surrogate for him and his girlfriend because her body is too perfect to ruin. A few months ago, I made a post about my ex-husband. Since then, we have had little to no communication, except through a third party because we have a daughter together. He does absolutely nothing for her. He asked for full custody because he didn't want to pay child support. I finally got him to agree to supervised visits and zero child support. The last 3 months, I haven't spoken a word to him and he hasn't seen our daughter. But recently, he's been telling but his hot 18-year-old girlfriend. The reason why he told me is because we agreed to tell each other about our relationship, since the person would interact with our daughter. But he's always accidentally sending me nudes of bikini pictures of her, or accidentally sending me messages meant for her. The other day, he told me that he wants to have a baby with. He's irresponsible and she's immature, so they would make horrible parents. But he wants me to carry their child. Why? Because her teenage body is so hot and sexy, and that I'm old and used. I have no idea why he would even ask me. Why is he telling me about her body? Why does he want me involved in any sort of way? It's all so weird. Our leading lady, a working mom with a husband who seems to have taken a nap on his responsibilities since 2021, decides to play a little "Where's the baby?" game. Spoiler alert, baby isn't with the napping dad, but at a friend's house. Plot twist? The husband goes into panic mode, has a full-blown panic attack, and seeks refuge at his mother's house. Now, let's analyze the characters. We have our exhausted protagonist, the mom who's just trying to keep her baby safe. Then there's the lazy husband who's been treating parenting like a siesta, and suddenly discovers the downside of sleeping on the job. Cue the concerned mother-in-law playing the peacemaker. She probably deserves an Oscar for calming those nerves. As the family drama unfolds, friends and family pick sides like it's a sports match. The husband's camp is throwing around words like kidnapping, while the mom's supporters are applauding her bold move. And just when you thought the story was winding down, enter the ex-husband with a plot twist that makes absolutely no sense. He's now on a mission to turn his ex-wife into a surrogate for him and his hot 18-year-old girlfriend because her body is apparently too perfect to be ruined. In the grand tradition of avoiding stereotypes, let's not paint the mom as a villain or the husband as a hapless victim. They're both navigating the roller coaster of parenting, and sometimes you need a little creative parenting to shake things up. The positive message here? Life is a wild ride, and sometimes you gotta make bold moves to keep things from falling apart. Now, let's go to comment section. User a wind-up bird. Given OP's post 6 months ago, she could probably find neighbors to testify about her husband neglecting the baby, not to mention that she said the hospital found evidence of neglect. It seems like she would have a good case for him not having any custody. As for the surrogacy issue, 1. I don't believe for a moment that he wants to have another baby given that he didn't give a shit about the first one. He's just doing this to try to make OP feel bad. He's pissed that she kicked him to the curb and he lost his gravy train. 2. I have doubts that he even has an 18-year-old girlfriend. I'd be doing a reverse image search and seeing if he just found those pictures on the web somewhere. Maybe he got them off of Reddit or OnlyFans. And they're not even pics of his girlfriend. Regardless, I'd collect and save all this evidence, consult a lawyer, and start a case for child support. User Logical Formal 9944. That and he seems like a headache to deal with, and a narcissist who wants OP to keep being hungover about his pathetic existence. I'd also rather raise my child with no child support than deal with the toxicity of having him around, let alone talking with him. If I was OP, I'd just talk to him through emails rather than texts or etc. because texts seem like too much of a responsibility to handle for someone that childish, since all he sends are nudes and etc. Not one word about his daughter or seeing her so far. So you better to just block him and ask him to talk through email, a lawyer, if he wants to discuss things about his daughter. He can't accidentally send nudes through email or text to his GF either. Problem solved, and if he tries that SHT on email, that'll be the most stupidest way to officially land in jail at that point. He can't make excuses if it's via email, lol. User Carolina Mama 2015. Seriously, go back to court, get child support, and a protection order for yourself and your daughter. If he can have a baby with an 18-year-old, he can support his daughter. The fact that he's 36 and wants to have a baby with someone who is barely legal makes me ill. Let's get into the next story. How do I M40 tell my kids, F12, 15, and 17, that my infidelity is the reason for the divorce? I'm here for genuine advice, looking especially for advice from people who have been the child in this situation. I know I screwed up. I don't need anyone to tell me again. 2 years ago, my ex-wife F40 found out I had been cheating with my current GF F29 and immediately divorced me. We had a very civil split, and both agreed not to tell our girls what led to it. A year ago, my GF and I started renting walking distance from my ex-wife. This has muddled our 50-50 custody agreement as my girls sometimes come over while on their mom's week and sometimes go to their mom's on my week. They basically come and go as they please from both homes, but generally sleep at the custodial parent's house. My GF has recently taken issue with this. She doesn't like that they come over without asking and that we get no kid-free time. She's asked me to enforce a boundary with my girls that they cannot come over on their mom's weeks unless we explicitly invite them. I told her absolutely not. I pay 100% of our living expenses, and I'm not gonna make my girls feel unwelcome in a house I pay for. She then made the comment that maybe they wouldn't want to come over anymore if they knew what I had done and with who. I've decided it's time for them to know the truth. I can't have this threat hanging over me. How can I do this? What do I say? Do I involve a third party? Should their mom be there? I just don't know how to admit I blew up all our lives for nothing. Has anyone gone through this with their father and came out with an intact relationship? Just breaking up with my GF is not a solution to this. I'm afraid she will tell them out of spite whether we are together or not. In the following story update, we'll share our opinion. Update. How do I M40 tell my kids, F12, 15, and 17, that my infidelity is the reason for the divorce? I took everyone's advice and involved my ex-wife in this situation. Safe to say she was pissed off at my poor choice in partners and having to deal with this BS. But we got together with the girls at ex-wife's house and told them. Many of you suspected the girls already knew. Incorrect. Apparently they thought we broke up because of my job and my refusal to accept a new one. We did not lie to them during the divorce and tell them an untrue reason. We just told them that relationship issues are private and we would be willing to have a discussion when they were all adults. So thankfully there is no trust lost in my ex-wife, which some of you were concerned about. All my girls were incredibly upset. They were being cordial with my GF because their mom encouraged them to be civil, but apparently hated her. They couldn't believe I would give up my wife for her, our family, and their stability, which is fair. They are refusing to see me for now. My ex and I are going to get them into therapy, and I'm hopeful that over time we can rebuild a relationship. My oldest is furious and has sent me some scathing messages and then blocked me, so I am really concerned about her and I. I missed some of her huge life events due to my affair, and I think that will be hard for her to forgive. As for the GF, she has gone plain and simple. She has her next partner lined up and is moving to be with him. I can't say I'm hurt about that, which shows me how little I cared for her. I just feel relieved. A bunch of you suggested getting back with my ex-wife. Unfortunately, that topic has been breached when the affair was discovered, and she is 100% uninterested. She takes her job as a mom very seriously, and in her mind, the girls would eventually know, and it would be setting a bad example for them to take back a cheater. Even independently of that, cheating has always been a deal breaker for her. I feel bad as she was planning on moving her partner in, and now feels like she has to delay it until the girls are in a better place. She was really angry with me, especially for that reason. In her anger, she's also let it slip that her and her partner are planning on marrying in the next few years, and having another child. She's never shared anything personal with me past allowing me to meet her partner before the girls did so. That was a shock to me. I'm trying to process that information. That hurts more than my GF cheating and leaving, which tells me I have a lot more work to do in getting over her. There is a permanence in her marrying that I am not prepared for. It's been a sobering experience for me. Thank you to everyone who legitimately gave me advice. It was very helpful. If I could in turn offer some advice, don't cheat on your partner. The grass is greener where you water it, and if I had taken the time, effort, harsh energy I gave my affair partner and invested it in myself, my wife, I would be incredibly happy right now. And as a side note to all the men messaging, commenting, congratulating me for getting a younger woman, that shit doesn't matter. I've never looked at my ex-wife and thought she was old or unattractive, and she was better in bed than my ex-GF. This had nothing to do with getting a younger woman, trading my wife in. It had to do with a self-destructive ego that has led to the most important people in my life hating me. All that shit is irrelevant. Don't get caught up in it. First of all, let's acknowledge the courage it takes to face the music and spill the beans to the kids. It's like confessing to eating the last slice of cake, but, you know, a million times more complicated. Now, our leading man's living situation resembles a chaotic Airbnb where kids check in and out like it's a vacation home. The girlfriend throws in some spice by suggesting the nuclear option of revealing the infidelity to the children. Drama alert. But wait, is it just me? Or is this girlfriend a bit of a troublemaker? Plot twist number 2. She's out of the picture faster than you can say reality check. Let's not paint our protagonist as the irredeemable cheater, but rather as a guy learning some seriously tough life lessons. It's like he binge-watched a season of bad decisions and is now facing the consequences. Now, because let's face it, we all need a chuckle. Picture this: a guy caught between a demanding girlfriend and a trio of teenagers with the strategic ability to come and go as they please. It's like a sitcom writer's dream. As our leading man navigates the wreckage of his personal life, there's a silver lining. He's realized that the grass is indeed greener where you water it. Deep, right? It's a lesson in the importance of tending to your own garden before exploring the neighbor's lawn. And, oh boy, that revelation about the ex-wife's future plans is the cherry on top. It's like finding out there's a sequel to a movie you didn't know existed. Life, you sly dog, you never fail to surprise us. Let's now go on to the comment section. User Echidna Enchilada. Be prepared though, your relationship with you kids may never be the same, especially with your oldest. My dad cheated on my mom 5 years ago, right before she passed away. Haven't talked to him since and have zero care about whatever is happening to him. He's depressed? Don't care. Homeless? What's that matter to me? Dead? Meh, good riddance. No idea where he is. Don't care. Indifference is worse than hate, and she may end up there, and there won't be much you can do to stop it. User Magslu79, you have obviously learned the tough lessons. I'm not going to drag you. You know you deserve it. You definitely did the right thing here, even though I'm sure you're not feeling that way right now. I implore you to not stop trying with your girls. Keep trying to reach out, be there for them, show up at events, all the things. You can't just say you want to make things right, your actions have to back it up. It's going to be terribly awkward for a while. Push through it. User Beatrix the Floof replies, this OP. Good luck. Despite the vitriol here, good people are wishing the best for your kids, your wife, and you. People make mistakes. You might regret it forever, but you have to figure out how long you'll beat yourself up over it. Let's move on to the next story. My biological father, 44M, who left me when I was young, wants to have a relationship with me again. I don't think he's being genuine and wants something else. Should I agree to meet him again? My biological father, 44M, who left me when I 18M was young, wants to have a relationship with me again. I don't think he's being genuine and wants something else. Should I agree to meet him again? My father, who I haven't even heard from since I was about 8, just showed up to my front door like 2 days ago and said he wanted to meet me. I haven't had any contact with this man for the past decade, and he just barges into my life again and expects me to go along with this bullshit. My mom died when I was a baby, so I never even knew her, and I guess it sort of broke my dad. He was in my life so little even when he was around. I don't have any concrete memories of him, just flashbacks every now and then. He would leave me alone with whatever new girlfriend he managed to get and go gamble whatever he made from his odd jobs. I knew how to cook and clean well enough to sustain myself by the time I was 7, and I guess he saw that as reason to be there even less. We lived in a really rundown area, and it was a pain trying to go to and from school every day, while avoiding the type of people who lived there. It was not the kind of place a kid should have lived in, but he didn't care enough. There were days I went without food or heating because he got too drunk to pay the landlord, and there were times I was going to kicked out onto the streets. I was always too nervous to approach the police about this because he would tell me the stuff they did to little kids. Now that I look back, he was just trying to scare me into not letting others know how horrible he was. He never hit me or anything, mostly because he was never around. When I was 8, he stopped coming around entirely. I was used to him going for weeks or even months at a time, but this time he just never came back. That's when it got really bad for me. Whatever savings I had weren't enough to last me longer than a few months. I had to live off whatever my friends got me at school or go to the local soup kitchen. I was there so often, they started to reserve a plate for me every night. I didn't have heat or water and had to hide when the landlord came around for rent. I think after a while he just gave up and stopped bothering me. I actually have issues remembering this time in my life because there's these massive gaps in my memory. I would just blank out for days at a time and then it would go back to normal. I never told anyone because I thought that they would take me away and my dad wouldn't know where I was when he came back. By the time I was 10, I was on the verge of being homeless and was starting to get desperate enough to approach the teachers at my school when this guy who knew my dad showed up. Apparently, they knew each other from the army and my dad was still alive. He sent a message to this guy from God knows where about me and he showed up to my place. I was very hesitant to go along with this strange man who I never met before, but I really was desperate at this point. I remember that the man looked disgusted with my place and I actually got offended with that. He introduced himself to me and said that my dad had remembered me for once and had asked him to take me in. For me, it was take my chances with this guy or be homeless, so I chose to go with him. He told me to call him James, and it made sense since he was definitely not old enough for me to call him Dad. He was a weird guy, but he did mean well. Apparently, he was a problem child like me, and his parents sent him to the army to straighten him out. He met my dad there, and my dad took care of him since he had just turned 18, and my dad had been there for a few years. He said that the army changed my dad from the guy he knew. I don't really care. He had me after he came back. If he really was so fucked up, he never should have had kids. James managed to get custody of me and I went to live with him. He's pretty well off, so it was a massive shock in lifestyle changes. I'll admit I was a brat during the first year or so. I was terrified of losing all of this that I acted out both at home and at the new private school I went to. I didn't fit in with the rich kids there and was singled out because of it. I got into fights constantly, and if it weren't for James, I would have been kicked out. I didn't believe he was going to stay and thought he would leave me just like my dad did, but he didn't. He confessed that he always wanted kids, but that the only one person he wanted them with ended up leaving him. He wouldn't be able to have biological kids with another person. And so when he found out about me, it felt like he was given another chance. He was really patient with me the entire time, and always sided with me no matter what I did. I got the sense that he was lonely like me, and he got how it felt. In my mind, he's my actual dad. He's the one who paid for my education, food, clothes, went to all my baseball games, bought me anything I asked for. He's the one who stayed with me when I got my wisdom teeth pulled out, or whenever I was sick. He's the one who celebrated all my birthdays with me and would take me out my favorite restaurant whenever I got good grades or won a game. He's the one who went shopping with me for my new bedroom in his house and told me to get whatever I wanted. He's the one who got me my first phone and car. He's the one who came to my high school graduation and college acceptance ceremony. He was the one to comfort me and fly me back home after I got into a really bad fight with my boyfriend. He's my dad, even if we aren't related by blood. I went back home for the holidays and was lounging on the sofa waiting for a food delivery when there was a knock on the door. I thought it was what we ordered for dinner and I went to pay the delivery man. When I opened the door, there was a guy in his mid-40s. I didn't see any food package and thought that he was here for something else. He asked if this is where James lived and I said yes. He then asked my name. I told him and he tried to hug me. I pushed him away and demanded to know who the hell he was. He just chuckled and said he was my dad and to let him in. I froze because I couldn't fucking comprehend what was happening. I shut the door in his face and called James. He was out on work, and when I told him who was there, he told me to close all the blinds and lock the doors. He then told me he would be back in a couple of minutes and to stay in my room and not to leave even if I heard noises outside. I was getting pretty nervous but did as he said. The man was still outside the door and was banging on it at this point. I hid in my room and was fully ready to call the police. After a few minutes, I saw James' car pull into the driveway, and he got out to yell at my biological father. They disappeared from my line of view, but I could still hear them. It got pretty heated when James told my dad to leave if he didn't want to go back to prison again. After a few minutes, James came to my room and asked if we could talk. I let him in and demanded to know what was going on. He looked tired and sat down on my bed and told me that my biological father wanted to have a relationship with me again. I couldn't believe what I was hearing and asked if he was joking. He said that he wasn't and that he hated that idea as much as I did. He has no idea what my dad has been doing for the past decade before he kicked him out. He asked me my thoughts on it. I could barely comprehend what was happening and told him I needed time. He agreed and told me that no matter my decision, he would support me. But he also said he doesn't believe my dad is back purely to reconnect. I agreed with that. He hugged me and left me to figure out my thoughts. So this is where I'm left. I haven't felt like this since I was 8 and waited at the front door of my old apartment for my dad to come back the whole night. Every horrible feeling has sprung up again, and I'm not sure if I want to hurt him or myself more. I want to find him and punch him and demand an answer on why he left me, on why I wasn't good enough for him to stay. I want to curl up into a ball and never talk to anyone again. I want to do a lot of things, but none of them are feasible. It's been a couple of days since, and I still haven't given an answer. James hasn't pushed the subject either. My dad hasn't shown up again, but I think James knows how to contact him if needed. I haven't been in such a bad place since I was younger, and don't know what to do anymore. I feel everything is pointless, and that no matter what I choose, I will regret it. I don't even know what he's been doing for past 10 years, and I'm scared of getting attached just for him to leave again. I've been sleeping less, eating less, and have been getting constant nightmares from when I was a kid. It's gotten to the point that James told me to take a few weeks off of school to recuperate. I look like a zombie, and my boyfriend actually wants to fly over to my state to help me thaw this. I don't know what the fuck to do, and I'm so fucking scared. Should I let him back in and take a risk, or never speak to him again and continue on with my life? I want answers so bad, but I don't know if I'll like the ones I get. What should I do? We will share our opinion in the next story update. My biological father, 44M, who left me when I 18M was young, wants to have a relationship with me again. I don't think he's being genuine and wants something else. Should I agree to meet him again? First of all, he showed up drunk to the coffee shop we agreed to meet at, like full-on stumbling, slurring his words about to pass out drunk. The only reason why we weren't kicked out is because I'm friends with the owner of the shop, and they gave us a secluded booth. I had to help him sit down and had to order his coffee for him. I got flashbacks from when I was younger and had to help him back to his bed or the couch after he came back in the middle of night, having gambled and drunk all our money away. He was barely coherent and kept on talking about some random ass shit I couldn't even decipher. I considered just leaving him there, but decided that if this is the last time we meet, I'm going to get some answers. After half an hour and 5 cups of coffee, he sobered up enough to have coherent thought and asked how I was doing. I couldn't even believe he was asking me that. I just ignored that and demanded to know what the hell he's been up to the past decade and why he never came back. He went on tangents and side stories, but managed to explain everything I wanted to know. I was right. I hated the answers I got. It would have been easier to just continue blaming him my entire life, but what actually happened has fucked me over so hard. He started with his childhood, and I guess that's a decent beginning on why he's so messed up. It was shitty, apparently. He was abused in every way there was, by both the other kids and the adults. He didn't have anyone. And the moment he turned 18, he joined the army to get away from them. There, he had a purpose, people to look out for. He said that they were his real family, and he would have protected them with this life. James was one of them. He described the moment he first saw James, pompous and arrogant because of his family's money, and knew that he wouldn't be able to survive there without help. He took James under his wing and helped make him into the man he is today. He was honorably discharged after a few years, and was given an opportunity to start a new life. He was working at a gym when he met my mother. She was yelling at some guy for trying to get handsy with her. And when it started to get physical, my dad was about to step in when she knocked him out clean. She didn't get in trouble because the cops said it was self-defense. She later asked my dad why he didn't step in earlier, and he said it looked like she had it handled. She asked how he knew, and he told her that the other guy was sloppy, and while she was way smaller than him, her stance and movements told him that he could kick his ass. She asked him outright after, and according to him, the best years of his life followed. She understood him and gave him reason to believe that not everyone was a shitty person. They moved in together into her place at the 5-month mark, and 6 months later, found out she was pregnant. They had a shotgun wedding, since neither had family they were close to and just a few friends they trusted. I was easy enough for my mom during the pregnancy and labor, but not after apparently. She developed postpartum depression and was overwhelmed with me. My dad helped her as much as he could, but also had to go to work to continue paying the bills and for her medication. He tried to get her to see someone, but she refused due to the cost. When I was about 7 months old, she killed herself by overdosing on her meds. When my dad got home and found her body, he immediately blamed me. It wasn't logical, but in his mind, I had taken away the one person he truly loved with all his heart by simply being born. When he explained it to me and told me how my mother killed herself because of me, I understood. I got that if she never had me, both of them would have been living their best lives right now. I can't blame him for wanting to do nothing with me afterwards. A lot of my anger dissipated after he told me that I looked exactly like her, and that every time he looked at me, it was a reminder of her. After that, he moved to a shadier part of town with me and gave the local kids scraps and change in order to take care of me while he went out. They kept me alive long enough until I was 2, and he got whatever woman he was seeing to look after me. That went on until I was 7, and he thought I was old enough to take care of myself. I wasn't, and told him as much, but he just shrugged me off and responded with, "You didn't die or anything. As long as you were in one piece, it was fine. I really wanted to punch him and got to the point on where he was the past 10 years and why he came back now. Apparently, he did some stints in prison for aggravated assault and was either passing out in alleyways or managed to hook up with a woman and stayed at her place for a few weeks before she kicked him out. He was traveling when he found an old picture he had of me and my mom when I was born. That's when he called James and told him about me. He then tried to rob some rich family's house and got put away for 15 years. He got out on parole and thought it would be a good idea to try and meet me again. I asked why, and he said he didn't need a reason to want to meet his kid. I told him he lost the right to call me his kid after everything that has happened, and he told me to cut him some slack. That his shitty childhood and losing his wife because of me messed him up and he wasn't thinking straight. But he was back and wanted to reconnect again. I didn't know how to get out of this without either beating him up or just crying in the bathroom, and I tried to be calm and told him that I understood what he was trying to say, and that I'd be in contact about where this could go. He agreed and gave me a hug. I just wanted to get it over with and let him. I don't know why, but I started to panic and started shaking during it. And after he let me go, I threw up in the bathroom and basically had a nervous breakdown in my car. I managed to drive home and slept the entire rest of the day and half of the next. I only came to when James told me my boyfriend was here to check up on me. This was a day ago, and I'm typing this while my boyfriend is sleeping next to me. I got the answers I had been waiting my whole life for, but they messed me up even more. I still don't know what to do and feel like everything is crumbling. My biological father still wants to have a relationship, and I'm doubting my whole stance on this being a one-time thing. Let's address the elephant in the room. Your biological father's grand entrance. Dude showed up drunk at the coffee shop? Really? I've seen smoother landings in a toddler's attempt at a trust fall. I mean, if you're going for a heartfelt reunion, at least pick a beverage that doesn't smell like regrets. Now, about this fatherly figure. The one who stuck around James. He's the MVP here. The unsung hero. The guy who deserves a medal for stepping up when your bio dad went AWOL. It's like you hit the parental jackpot with James. You know, you've got a good one when he's ready to throw down with your bio dad like it's a WWE match in your front yard. And let's talk about those revelations. Childhood trauma, army buddies, a mom with a lethal right hook. It's like a Netflix documentary waiting to happen. But hey, at least it explains why bio dad went MIA. Doesn't excuse it, but it's like trying to understand why cats knock things off tables. There's a weird logic, but it doesn't make it okay. As for your feelings, let's be real. It's a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, confusion, and probably a dash of what the heck is my life thrown in. Anyone in your shoes would be feeling like a shaken soda can waiting to explode. Now let's move on to the section for comments. User Frolic with Tony. Man, reading this post and the previous one, I really don't know exactly what to say. I have a shitty father as well, but obviously nothing as extreme as your situation and your upbringing. Clearly, he has severe issues with his mental health, and you do as well by proxy. You have a dad? This man is not your father. He is just related to you. You had the perfect male and father figure in your life and raised you. If you want to have some type of relationship with your biological father, I suggest some group therapy. This is too much to handle for any one person and two people trying to reconnect. There needs to be that neutral third party there to help sift and go through all the shit he's done to you and the stuff you've gone through because of his absence. But you are also valid to not want any relationship with him. Not everyone will be worthy of your time and affection, and not everyone just because they're related to you gets a free pass on their past mistakes and decisions. User throw RA1932148898 OP replies. I really tried to explain how he hurt me. I put everything into it. I told him things I haven't even told James or my boyfriend. I just wanted him to acknowledge what he did to me. But he doesn't care. He finds excuses after excuses. He blamed me for a lot of it, and at the point, I don't know what's right anymore. I wanted answers, and I got them. I thought he might apologize when he saw how bad he was to me. He'd never agree to talk to a shrink. He hates them for some godforsaken reason. I think he partially blames them for not being able to help my mother, even if she never went for one. I want him to apologize, but I'm also starting to blame myself for how a lot of it went down. I thought that at least he's trying to make amends, which is more than what I can say for myself. I knew James knew how to contact him for years, but I never tired. I feel partially responsible at this point, but I had been so angry at him before all of this. User Lizziote. He needs therapy, not contact with the kid he unfairly blames for his wife's death. As of right now, he's still just like his parents, abusive and selfish to a fault. Your mother's death was not your fault. It was a tragedy, but no one is to blame. If someone must be blamed, he can blame himself for getting her pregnant in the first place. Let's shift to the next story. I am 30, married my wife, F26, 6 months ago, and just found out she has batshit ideas over intercourse and purity. In 2019, I was going through a rough patch. Hated my job, I wasn't in the best of terms with my parents, and I was feeling sorry for myself after getting cheated on and feeling worthless. My GF, Crystal, basically pulled me out of that funk with patience and support, We were friends before we dated, and she knew I was in a bad place, so she'd constantly text call to see how I was doing almost every day and encouraged me to take the steps I needed to take. She might have literally saved me from hurting myself the way I was going. From there, we became more than friends. After 2 years, we moved to a new city and started living together. She had to move because of a great job offer, and I followed along since I could work from home. This year, we got married and planned on having a baby, but put on a pause on that because some unexpected medical issues sprung up, thyroid disease. But the plan was to try as soon as the doctor advises it's safe. Now, I'm not sure I want to have a baby with her at all. Last Saturday, we had a few friends over for drinks and dinner. Eventually, one of her close friends was left, and it was just the 3 of us. The friend shared a story about their grandma being uber strict, and a lot of family members couldn't stand her, but how being with grandma helped shape her up. This prompted my wife to share about her mother and how she was tough to deal with, but always had her best interests in mind and busted her ass to support her and her siblings. All good so far. Then she blurted out about how her mom being so paranoid and uptight that she constantly gave Chris and her sister virginity tests when they'd come back from hanging out with friends, especially if they spent the night at a friend's place or elsewhere. This was done when in their teenage years between 12 and 17. Both her friend and myself just looked at her taken back, and she made a quip over old people being weirdos to break the awkwardness. Once we were alone, I asked her about it, and she said it's embarrassing to say, but that was just a thing she had to put up with growing up, but it was for the best. Because in her words, it kept her head on straight and kept from turning out like other women. I argued that she turned out okay in spite of that, not because of that. She told me I didn't get it because I'm a guy and that I'm not a parent yet who has to worry over their kid's image and reminding them to not be stupid. So I point-blank asked her if she plans to do this to any daughters we might have, and she said she would because it works. I told her that's a gross violation of a teenager's right. Pointed out there's no such thing as a real virginities test, and it'd just fuck with the kid's head if their mom forces them to show their genitals to check if they had intercourse every time they don't spend the night at home. She defended it by saying a woman can tell, and that even if she couldn't tell, it'd keep on the pressure on the kids to not fool around. And she mentioned again that she turned out well. So what's the big deal? I told her this is just plain weird, and there's better ways to preach abstinence. And she told me if it bothers me so much, then I better hope we have a boy just like she does. I asked her what she meant by that, and she just said boys are easier to raise. She then emphasized that a lot goes into raising girls. I asked if this is why her older sister was kicked out for a few days when she was 17, and she just said kind of. I told her that's some shitty parenting. At that point, she was getting upset, and I didn't want to push things any further. I've known her family for years, and while I've always known her mom is a hardcore fundamentalist, I didn't know it, she did stuff like that. And my wife has shared before she's always had a preference for having a boy over a girl. But I never knew it was over stuff like this. My wife is caring, hardworking, was a great student, and is doing great in her career. So I'm not sure how to bring the topic up again without undermining what she thinks helped build her into the person she is, her mom being a Puritan weirdo, but saying it'd be a terrible idea to raise any daughter we might have under a similar environment. It also makes me second-guess the idea that any child we have can choose to believe what they want to believe, and we won't pressure them to be something they don't want to, if she doesn't think they have a say in their intercourse lives. What about other parts of their life? Firstly, hats off to Crystal for playing your knight in shining armor back in 2019, the real MVP for dragging you out of that pity party. But wait, plot twist. Turns out her mom had a different idea of armor, more like a chastity belt, but we'll get to that. So, over a casual dinner party, your wife drops the bomb. Virginity tests were a family tradition. Who knew family traditions could be so invasive? Her friend's grandma might have been strict, but this feels like how to scar your teenager 101. You confronted her like any sane person would, and she hit you with the classic, you wouldn't understand, you're not a parent line. Ah, the old, you need to be a parent to get this defense. Meanwhile, you're just sitting there thinking, I don't need to be a pilot to know if a plane is crash landing, right? And the grand plan to continue the legacy of genital scrutiny with your potential daughters? That's a hard no from the audience. But hey, according to her, it works. Because nothing says effective parenting like genital pressure, right? The kicker? If it bothers you, hope for a boy. Apparently, boys are a walk in the park, and girls are this mysterious puzzle wrapped in an enigma, with a side of hormonal chaos. Who knew? Your wife defending her upbringing by saying it kept her head on straight is like saying, I became a great swimmer because someone threw me into the deep end without floaties. Not exactly a parenting strategy for the ages. And let's not forget the older sister getting a temporary boot at 17. Classic move. Nothing says I care like a brief eviction notice. Now, let's proceed to the comments section. User I in TJ. This is how sexual abuse gets passed on through families generation after generation, just passing that generational trauma down the line like a rite of passage. It's very sad. I hope she gets the counseling she needs. User Milivam replies, "This is the most succinct and compassionate explanation. I'm pretty surprised by people essentially calling his wife an abuser or monster. She's a victim who has not had the resources. This isn't about access to money or emotional support. To receive proper help and therapy. Cycles don't have to continue in the age of information highway. I also hope OP can help his wife begin to unpack her trauma. It's a huge undertaking and wish them both the best." User Dubia KA. One thing I will say is that, regardless of how you go about this, please do not have a child while this is still an issue. This is not something you can just pray will get better by the time it happens. Let's get into the last story. My M27 family wants me to break up with my girlfriend F22 after how she responded to my brother's M22 prank. Hi Reddit, longtime lurker, first-time poster. I know how the title sounds, but I could honestly use some outside perspective since anyone else I could ask is biased towards the situation. I have been dating my girlfriend Lola for about 2 years now, and overall things have been great. My brother Ian has always been pretty weird whenever she comes up or is around. Ian and I are very close, talking to each other daily, but the conversation will usually change gears right as I start talking about anything Lola related. I thought maybe he was jealous of the time I was spending with her, or maybe a little crush on her. Still, whenever we'd get together, he'd make comments about our age gap, poke fun at me for simping, and joke about her sleep disorder. Ian's always enjoyed a good prank. Either pranking or being pranked, he loves to laugh, and I genuinely believe that when he goes to prank people, he means it in a way to share the laughter. When he's tried to pull little pranks on Lola though, he does things that he figured out triggers her disorder, like making sudden loud sounds, jumping out to scare her. And one time I caught him before he was going to do the shaving cream sleep bit while she was taking a nap in the guest room. I warned him in more detail then that he shouldn't mess with her while she's sleeping, as interrupting her regulated cycles isn't good for her. And at the absolute best, she's the worst kind of cranky when she's woken up. Ian looked like he understood, and I thought that was that. I threw a Hawaii party a few days ago and invited Ian and a bunch of mine and Lola's friends. Everyone was having a good time. My watch went off with the alarm that we set up for Lola to take a nap. She went off with a sleepy smile. I kept partying. A while later, we all heard a scream, followed soon after by cussing and something breaking. I panicked as it was from my room where Lola was, and I ran through nearly kicking the door down to find she shoved someone down and was yelling at them. I looked to see who it was and saw a spider mask that I unfortunately recognized as Ian's from years ago. I saw him scrambling to get away, but she only stopped when 3 of her friends pushed past me to pull her up and check her before she ultimately passed out in their arms. Ian scrambled off the floor and ripped the mask off, revealing the work she'd managed to do in the time it took us to react. He started bawling, telling me that she was insane and abusive, that he only wanted to make sure she wasn't going to sleep through the ball drop. At this point, everyone started yelling. Ian looked terrified and kept repeating that she was crazy, and that I shouldn't be with someone who could do this to her BF's brother. Some of my guys were yelling that if she did it to him, she could do it to me. All of her friends were screaming about how he should know, to leave a sleeping girl alone, and how it was creepy. Ian ended up calling our mom to tell him that Lola hurt him and she's furious. Lola's friends ended up carrying her out against my protests, and my friends were nearly split down the middle. I remember standing there while everyone argued while the ball dropped, my mother calling me for the 10th time, and Lola finally texting me that she needs space to think. Since then, we've lightly texted. She's expressed that she can't shake her fear of what happened, but she still hasn't told me from her side what happened. Ian and my mom are trying to convince me to break up with her, and chastising me for not helping or standing up for my brother when he was being assaulted, also demanding an apology for not playing my part as an older brother. Ian has FaceTimed a few other family members and now my aunt, who paid for both our colleges and the house my mom and brother live in, and helped me get my apartment, is taking the 3-hour drive up to make sure her boys are okay, which is stressing me out even more. On one hand, I know family is family, and I should do what I can to stand up for the people who helped raise me and become the person I am. On the other hand, Lola is my girlfriend. I adore her. I love her. I feel like I should be there to protect her. I don't want to push her boundaries, but not talking to her is a different kind of hurt. Ian is convinced that he was doing a well-intentioned prank and was wrongfully punished for wanting to make sure everyone was enjoying themselves. I don't know if I believe that, but I've known Ian for 22 years. Growing up, we were inseparable. I don't want to doubt him just because love may be blinding me. How do I approach the situation with Lola? How can I convince my family that Lola isn't a threat? She's honestly the most sweet and caring person. She just can't be woken up, and part of me feels like she was pushed to that point. In short, while a lot of you advised I wait for Lola to tell me her side before I confront my family, they all came over to my apartment yesterday morning while I was writing out a list of questions for them. I was supposed to go over the night before, but I texted them saying I needed time and if we could meet later today. But they obviously didn't like that and showed up unannounced. The fighting started almost immediately, and I initially was thrown off by them being there. But I matched energy and started yelling back at them for their predatory and enabling behavior of Ian, and how I couldn't believe they'd side with him over this golden rainbow baby aside. My aunt got in my face about disrespect, while my mom cried and brother cussed me out. But I pointed at my computer and yelled back at them that if they genuinely believed Lola was the problem, then they were victim-blaming idiots that I wanted nothing more to do with. My mom kept crying, but I got my aunt's attention with the computer and she got close to look at the screen. I was going through comments to write up all the questions. And after a minute, she turned back to us, really my brother, and said, "What is this?" I explained Reddit and that I'd posted for help. Ian then stopped comforting mom and pushed past me to get to the computer, asking what right I had sharing family business on the internet. My aunt stopped him and asked, "Why didn't you tell us you were alone with her? You never told me she was sleeping." To say all hell broke loose would be an understatement. Like a switch, my mom almost immediately stopped loudly crying and looked over at my aunt confused. Ian started shaking his head and reiterating his version of the story, which, listening to it, was infuriatingly off. I'd figured out that not only did he tell mom and our extended family a version of the story in which Lola was all too violent with him when he jumped from behind a door to give her a little spook, but he left out the details that put him in any bad light. I started yelling again, calling him a liar, but he started crying and called me a liar who was just trying to lie for my girlfriend. At the sight of my brother crying, my mom pleaded with us to stop, my aunt scrolling more on the screen. It felt like both a minute and forever that we were yelling in each other's faces about how the night went, how I felt he always used his tears to get his way, him yelling at me about how ungrateful I always was, etc. Unfortunately, I forgot where we were and didn't keep the volume down at all, and sometime later there was a knock at the door. I didn't know who it could be. Some dumb part hoped Lola, though I knew it wasn't. It was 2 officers, answering to a noise complaint from one if the neighbors. Feeling stupid, I plainly explained that no one was hurt and we were having a heated argument, but that no one was in danger. I did let them look around and talk to my mom and brother, but my aunt spoke up when it looked like they were just gonna give us a warning. "Actually, I think it's good that you're here. My nephew has something he'd like to report." She motioned to Ian, whose eyes looked between her and the officers quickly. My aunt still looked as angry when she first arrived, but she was glaring at Ian. You know, hypothetically, if someone touches or hits you without permission or justified reason, that's something you can and should report. Is there anything you want to say? There was silence, eyes moving to everyone around the room. My aunt didn't look encouraging in a report. It hit me that she was calling him out. I stared at him. His eyes were bulging. He looked as panicked as the other night when he was trying to get away from Lola. One of the officers asked if everything was all right, and like clockwork, Ian started bawling his eyes out. My mom asked him what was wrong. I told her she had to stop babying him. He's been lying to you guys. My aunt asking him again if he had anything to report. You were up in arms against this girl this morning. Where'd all that fire go? Did she hit you or not? It took a while of us pushing him, but he finally admitted to the room that he didn't have anything to report because he didn't feel like she'd be rightly prosecuted. His next story sounded closer to the one I knew, where he admitted to knowing Lola had gone to sleep and wanted to scare her, so she'd wake up. I still don't believe his reason. Why he wanted her up, that he put on a mask. I asked if he knew she had a phobia. He said he knew she found them creepy, and that no, there was no one else in the room with them. He couldn't get any of our friends to agree to the prank, so he did it himself. He said he started making sounds against the wall. The bed was against the wall and then got close to scream in her face. He said she woke up and surprised him because he thought the stress and panic would cause her to scream or hide, but she went for his throat instead. He described his beating to everyone in the room, some of which I saw had the officers look at each other then back at him. Then that's when I pushed the door in. The door wasn't locked, I just panicked and didn't think to use the doorknob properly. I just threw my body at the door. And the rest of his story is what I was there for. I'm sure if the police weren't there, I would have hit him. I know I would have. My mom started crying even more when he said she was sleeping, a fact that changed his entire story, and my aunt chewed him out, everyone scolding him for his stupidity and asshole behavior, while the officers explained that it sounded like, if what he said was true, Lola acted in self-defense, and that not only was what he did juvenile, but one of the officers asked my mom's permission to question him more as his behavior was concerning, and they wanted to make sure he wasn't a danger to himself or others. My aunt and I told the cops he was 22 at the same time, an adult, and they didn't need her permission. He looks a lot younger than he is. Upon hearing his age, one of the officers sat down with him and asked him to talk through his thought process, and the other officer explained to my mom and aunt that Lola could press charges given Ian's story. My aunt still looked pissed while my mom cried about being confused and over her baby. My mom literally looked at me and said she didn't understand how her baby could do this. I already knew I was deep in the bullshit of this family, but I realized that I couldn't grow in the earth that poisoned me, and I needed to get away if I was actually going to get better and stay better. My mom kept fussing with my aunt and another uncle on the phone, crying over the drama while I texted a friend of mine who lives across the city if I could stay with him. I was feeling overwhelmed with all of them and didn't want to be within a few minutes of the source of the problem. I also wanted to give myself space to think and understand with a clear head. I'm typing this between breaks of me packing. My aunt saw me in my room doing this, but she didn't stop me. She only asked me if I'd spoken to Lola about this, and I told her I haven't yet, but I had plans to later on. She told me she was sorry for believing my brother without listening to any other account, and that she hopes Lola is okay. So then it was just me in the apartment. The cops left after taking a statement from my brother and I. My mom left with my brother, still crying. My brother calling me an asshole, the world's worst brother. And my aunt gave me a hug, apologizing again for how she and her sister acted, and told me that I don't owe her anything, but that she'd like to know that Lola's okay. With everyone gone, I went to my friend's house, and I'll be there until further notice. He couldn't make it to the party, but he heard about it from multiple people. As far as Lola, yes, I did meet with her yesterday. As excited as I was to see her, I know that most of you were telling me she was going to break up with me, so I'd been preparing for that. Whether I ended up single or not, I wanted to make sure she was okay above all. I know I don't deserve her as a girlfriend, and I'd much rather she not be with me if it meant she was safe. She brought a friend with her, and we all sat and talked. I showed them both the Reddit post, and Lola has asked that I not share any more information about her until she feels ready herself. She's on Reddit for gaming and general scrolling fairly often, and let me know that if she came across this story without me having told her, she would have been pissed. She did, however, read a lot of the commenters worried about her and wanted me to express to you all that, while upset, hurt, and with mixed up emotions, she is overall okay. She doesn't like that I posted about her without at least giving her a heads up, but after I offered to take the post down, she only asked that I give her time and to leave her personal life and opinions out of anything beyond what I've already said here until she says otherwise. In short, she did break up with me, and when I told her about the police telling us that she could press charges, her friend laughed and told me that they were more than aware. She thanks everyone for their concern and told me she really hopes we both learn from this. This section was approved by her. So yeah, unless I'm forgetting something, that's all I can give right now. My mom has been calling and texting me, telling me that this whole ordeal has made Ian and her a wreck, and she can't believe I'd let a girl do this to us. I blocked my brother right after he left my apartment, and I just blocked her. My aunt has let me know she'll talk to her, but I don't know who that's gonna go. I understand that it isn't what everyone wants, but none of this is anything I want either. To everyone who has nothing but bad things to say about me, I get it. I'm an asshole. I appreciate any and all advice I've been given. I'm gonna be taking a break from not only the BS in my life, but this Reddit stuff took. I know I have a lot of growing to do, and I can't do that in this environment. Thank you again to everyone. So, we've got a prankster brother, a girlfriend with a serious sleep disorder, and a guy stuck in the middle of this hurricane of chaos. And what's that? Oh, a spider mask, because nothing says good intentions like a creepy arachnid surprise. Our lead here has a girlfriend who's the Hulk when disturbed from her beauty sleep, a brother who thinks he's the king of pranks, and a mom who's, well, probably the reason the term drama llama was coined. Add an aunt into the mix, and it's the dysfunctional family reunion we didn't know we needed. Now, our hero faces the ultimate decision: family or girlfriend. It's like a twisted game show where the prize is emotional turmoil and sleepless nights. But hold on, there's a twist. The brothers' prank wasn't just harmless fun. It was a ticket to a roller coaster of police involvement. Move over, Shakespeare. We've got a family tragedy in the making. Now, how do you navigate this peculiar family tree without chainsaws and dynamite? That's the real challenge. Maybe suggest a family tradition of normal conversations and emotional well-being. In the grand finale, our protagonist ends up with a breakup, a blocked brother, a tearful mom, and an aunt playing referee. The moral of the story? Well, sometimes life throws so much drama your way that the only sane choice is to block everyone. Let's go ahead and enter the comments section. User, don't139. You do realize that your brother knew full well the extent of her sleep impediment, knew she had triggers, and used them against her? Once you have explained to him why he can't do that, and he keeps doing it, how can you defend him and try to act like he didn't have malicious intents? Of course he did. Or he just didn't care about anything other than to see her scared, not matter how it would scare and scar her. He is a jerk through and through. You should already be dumped, really. You found your brother in your GF's room, her fighting him off, and you didn't even stand up for her. User IndigoHG. He does things that he figured out triggers her disorder. Please break up with her so she doesn't have to suffer knowing her boyfriend will throw her to the wolves because her terror is funny. User Practically Perfectuck. Ask yourself this. If it was any other guy and not your brother creeping into your bedroom wearing a mask whilst your girlfriend was asleep, what would you have done? Your brother is so in the wrong here, I would be pressing charges. As we wrap up this Reddit story, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more captivating Reddit stories. Your support means the world to me. I enjoy, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.